What's up, everybody? Thanks once again for tuning into the Porrada Podcast. As usual, let's shout out the sponsors. I got the shirt on here for you watching the video. Hamel Jiu-Jitsu, my Jiu-Jitsu home away from home. I think I said that right again. And obviously, shout out to Salt Electrolytes. Discount code there is Porrada, Porrada. Make sure to check that out. You get a little discount with it, and I get a few pennies my way. This time around, I'm talking with our guy Blake, the general manager at M Theory Martial Arts here, where we've recorded so many episodes. And he is a ATOS black belt, which is fun to hear about. But now he's hanging out with us in little old St. Louis Park, Minnesota. So, without further ado, my conversation with Blake Berry. When did you start jiu-jitsu, Blake?
I actually looked at my account the other day, and I started, it was like August 27th, 2014.
Nice. You know the actual date. There's been a handful of people that know the actual date.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
I didn't until recently.
Here?
But yeah.
Where'd you start? I can't
Here.
remember.
Yeah, I started here. Yep.
Give me the story. Then what?
I started jiu-jitsu because I was working as a bouncer, and I was like the world's smallest bouncer. And, luckily I didn't really have to touch people, often. But like I did deal with people that were big enough where I was like, man, like I really need a plan beyond just like punching somebody in the face.
Yeah, straight violence, right?
And I'd heard these like, it was funny because at the time what I first started doing is I was going and doing Pan and Tukin at the Minnesota Kali group. And I feel like at that time in my life, I just kept hearing all these whispers of jiu-jitsu in different communities that I was involved in. And then I met this guy that I was working with, and he was doing jiu-jitsu at the Minnesota Kali group. And then I met another guy, and he told me about M Theory, and I decided, okay, like I'm gonna go in there and check it out. And it was funny because I'm not like a super easily intimidated person, but I was really nervous about it. And I rode my bike here because I used to ride my bike everywhere back then. Yep. And I would go sit on that bench like down the street down there. So I only had like 10 minutes on the warm-up mat because I felt so awkward sitting like on the warm-up mat waiting. But that went away pretty quick, and I was like one of those people that just I was here like every chance that I got.
It's
like
full immersion.
Within a month, I was like going to day classes and night classes, and
what like intimidated you about it? What was it, you think? Because you're not that kind of guy. You don't see.
Yeah, well, so like I grew up in like kind of like hardcore punk and stuff, and like I was sort of kind of transitioning out of that life at the time, and honestly, like I had really like. It was like kind of, I was like emerging back into like the real or like, quote, like kind of normie world. Yeah, and like it was, I had a difficult time relating to people, I guess. You
find your niche for a reason, right? You find your little crew.
Yeah. Yep. And so, it was just kind of weird, but I got over it pretty quick. Yeah, I mean, this place is pretty welcoming. You know how it is.
Yeah, for sure. What were you going to say about Ish? I kind of cut you off.
Ish let me come to the advanced classes like before I had 2 stripes and stuff. So I was like in that, I like threw myself in like pretty well.
And he kind of just read that off of you like, this guy's going to be all in.
I guess, so, I don't remember the conversation. I think I just was like, hey, can I start coming to the advanced classes? And he was like, yep. I think that was,
I bet anybody that asks, he's like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. And you'll either keep coming or you won't,
But and it'll be good for you nonetheless.
Yeah.
Keep going. Then what? Tell me the tale.
Well, and then, so I trained here until 2000. I think it must have been September or October of 2016. I got my blue belt from Ish in December of 2015. And then, so trained here for almost another year after that. And then the only reason I left is like I met a lady, and we within like 2 months we had bought a motorhome and left to go like traveling around.
Super cool.
Yeah, it was super cool. And I trained in St. Louis for a little bit under Kyle Watson. Kyle Watson was in the UFC. I don't know like what years, and I think he had like 8 fights in the UFC, and the last one he got knocked out like pretty brutally. But great fighter, great Muay Thai, really great Jiu-Jitsu. He has definitely the best academy in St. Louis proper. You know,
Sure.
like I think the nearest like good Jiu-Jitsu academy. That sounds a little bit shit talky, but
Sure.
the
Your impression, hey,
yeah,
you know,
is probably Daisy Fresh, you know, or like,
Sure.
and that's a little bit away.
Yeah.
But he's got a really cool academy in St. Louis. If you're ever in St. Louis, it's Watson Martial Arts. Go check it out. It's pretty.
Yeah,
It's
nice.
got a really awesome building too. And then I traveled around for a little bit. Ended up in Seattle, and I trained under an Amal Easton black belt there named Larry King. That was I was training every day at that academy. I was in like all the classes all the time.
Mhm.
And within a couple months, he asked me to teach his essentials class on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, which looking back is kind of funny, you know, like as a blue belt. I think that guy just had a lot of stuff going on and needed some help. But
needed some bodies. Yeah.
that was kind of where like I realized like, oh, like this isn't just a hobby for me. Like this is something that I really love doing. Like all I really want to do is jiu-jitsu.
Right.
It's like all I think about. You know, it's probably a slightly unhealthy obsession.
True.
Yeah,
See, for me, that's what a hobby is.
yeah, yeah, fair
You know what I'm
enough.
saying? Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not a hobby. No, that's exactly what a hobby is. Like, you know, me periodically re-practicing the same guitar chords I've been practicing since I was 15. That's not a hobby. That's, you know, this thing where I come here 6, 7, 9 days a week. That's what a hobby is anyway.
That's fair, and I think most jiu-jitsu people are going to be able to relate to that.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
I knew it was a hobby when I couldn't not go. That's when I knew it was a hobby
Yeah.
that I pay money for, and it sucks, and I'm never gonna make any money from.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, I don't have as hard a line as some people on the blue belt teaching thing. Maybe not running class, but like there's people in this room you know more than you're then qualified to teach them to some extent, in my opinion.
Sure,
You know?
I agree too, and that academy was funny too because it was like if you're familiar with Seattle at all, like the Amazon headquarters is there, like
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
Microsoft, all sorts of Facebook stuff like that.
Yep.
And if do you know the Amazon building? What it looks like? It's like this crazy. You know how frogs like leave that weird like bubbly spit looking stuff on? That's what it looks like. It's this weird bubble building that has like trees on the inside of it and stuff. It's super bizarre. Look it up. But the academy was, I don't know, 4 blocks up the hill from there.
Mhm.
So it was like me, and then it was just a revolving door of like these nerdy like
Yeah.
tech bros. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I don't mean that in like a
Sure. No.
pejorative.
Totally. Yep.
They were great.
They fit in well. A bunch of dorky jiu-jitsu guys.
Yeah.
So nerdy tech bros. rock and roll.
Yeah, and none of them lasted too long, you know. So like, it definitely there was a lot of white belts, and then at the time there was like, we had one Brazilian brown belt, and then there was like a handful of purple belts. So it wasn't like totally out of line in that particular academy that I was teaching.
Right.
But it was kind of weird because it was those Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes were definitely the biggest classes of the week. You know,
Sure. And now you're the man.
yeah. It was pretty funny. And my very first class there, I had no idea, but he didn't tell anyone that he was having a Michael Liera Jr. seminar going on. And so I show up to teach my very first class, and Michael Liera Jr. is sitting there. And
Honestly, you could insert thousands of names at this point of people I wouldn't want watching me as a blue belt teaching classes.
Yeah,
He's certainly
I
one
was
of
so
them.
nervous. And we were doing like top half guard something.
Sure. Nothing
and-
terribly advanced, but nonetheless, like
Yeah, and it was, you know, like even then, that's like still one of my favorite positions, and you know, like I loved it then too, and I was like forgetting my words, like I was so nervous having them in that class.
put your foot here. I mean your hand.
Yeah. So that was pretty funny, but all in all, I did that. We didn't stay too much longer in Seattle. I did that for like, I think 5 months, 6 months or something. It was a really good experience, you know, and definitely like let me know that like this is a path that I want to pursue.
Sure. Yeah.
You know.
You think that was a boom in your abilities with jiu-jitsu, having to then teach it for a little
Yeah,
while?
absolutely. Because, and still to this day, like, I'm sure there's a lot of other people that are like this. Like, I don't really think about jiu-jitsu when I do it a lot. Like jiu-jitsu is definitely, like I like that kind of, it's like my Zen time, where I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm like a pretty artistic person, I was a musician for a long time. And I think that jiu-jitsu kind of like fills in that hole a little bit too, since I don't really play music much anymore. And it's, it is like sort of like an artistic expression to me. But so to actually have to like stop and think about what I'm doing. Right. I think that, it helps anybody, that's still something I'm working on, is like trying to actually think about my jiu-jitsu and what I do and what I don't do,
I started teaching just one class a week several months ago, and all of my roles have been different since. Like the things I'm thinking about, even like abstractly, like, ooh, that's a good point I should make. When class comes around, and I'm out of the moment a little bit, but I'm also thinking about different details than I ever did before.
I think that people that can like think quickly in the moment are people that are gonna progress better in a lot of senses.
I'm screwed, man.
Yeah, me too.
My ramp was closed here today, and I almost panicked. Where did I go? I talk about thinking on the fly.
But do they give you a curriculum?
Loosely. Like here's roughly what we're working on. Okay. But what I've done actually is, it's getting 3 white belts and 2 blue belts, brand new blue belts. It's a young program. It's Hamel.
Yeah.
So I've taken to just workshopping. Like, what's sucking the most lately, guys? And somebody will raise their hand, and we'll just like, everybody's like, oh yeah, bottom side, just this usual stuff we all suffer with when we're white belts and blue belts. So I've kind of just let it be a seminar, open forum workshop, and it.
How long have you been doing that now?
Just a few months, yeah. And just once a week, but the first time I was like, what do you guys want to work on? You could, like, the eyes lit up and they start thinking, and it was like, I remember this. I'm still experiencing this. Like, can we just do what I need today? Totally. It kind of feels good to just address that thing that's been kicking your ass, So curriculum, sure, but also like who's in front of me,
I would wonder if we run into the same problem in teaching jiu-jitsu, where we're both kind of on like the far end of the spectrum as far as size goes. Mm-hmm. And so like there's some things that like I have a hard time teaching to people that are like long and lanky, like because we have to do things so completely different. Right. I like can't even relate to how they do the position, like do you feel like
dude, totally. And I bet that's infinite. I mean, you and I are maybe extreme examples.
Yeah.
What do you like, 130, 140?
Come on. I'm like 145.
Okay. I didn't mean to shortchange you. I'm definitely not 295. I'm 285.
5'7" and a half.
Yeah. I'm 39 and a half years old. We're kind of extreme examples, but at any gradient, you're 6'2" and he's 5'11", you're having different experiences.
Yeah.
Like mathematically in the strictest sense. But the fun part of that is you're then confronted, I've got a 120-pound woman asking me a question, and I'm like, well, that's zero problem to that. What's the issue? Oh, wait, they're having a problem.
Yeah.
Like actually a good example is I started reversing out of bottom side control and mount and, rolling more versus trying to regard because I'm not exactly the most mobile. Got me a few extra pounds.
Sure.
Big fellas give up space easy, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So once I started doing reversals and stuff, it was like, but the 130-pound women in my Monday class are going to get real lucky to get some of these reversals out of mount and bottom side,
Technically correct, like the no strength.
Yeah.
But they can get their
and timing. But then you watch them regard, and it's like, can you teach me how to do that? Because it's not what it looks like or feels like. Yeah. After Seattle?
So it was funny because after Seattle, we were talking about, we knew we were going to go to California, but we were sort of deciding between LA and California, or LA and San Diego. And I was thinking about going to Cabrinha's in LA. I really like his like capoeira, like warm up stuff, like mobility stuff. Like, like if you're, at the time, I guess I was 34 or something ish,
Arguably a young man still.
Yeah, but like you definitely start after thinking about taking care of your mobility and all that stuff. I was really into yoga at the time too, And then my lady Kate, she wanted to. She was like really pushing for San Diego, and she was like, I know there's that academy down there, ATOS, like, and I was like, let's go.
Yep.
You're
not short on decent places to train out there.
No, not at all. I mean, you from LA down to Tijuana, like you can't throw a rock without hitting world-class jiu-jitsu, and there's even beyond all the big names, like there's all sorts of random Brazilian dudes that are there that, everybody in Brazil knows, but maybe they were never a world champion, or maybe they never even coached a world champion, but they are really good at jiu-jitsu, really knowledgeable,
Don't need to be a social media whore to be good at jiu-jitsu.
Just
so happens that's who we know.
Totally. But so we moved to San Diego. I told myself that I was going to check out a bunch of different academies, but I went right to ATOS, and I knew that was the place, And it was actually kind of funny because I knew before I went down there. For one, I had a conversation on a different day with Michael Lear Jr., and I was telling him I was moving to San Diego, and he's like, why wouldn't you go to ATOS? And then, we talked a little bit more about it. And
there is reasons, but like, jump in, see if it's your spot. Like,
it's
probably the spot.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I thought, I did think that maybe there was a chance that, like I wouldn't like the vibe or whatever.
Never know.
But I don't know if you remember, but the Flow Grappling did a thing called Inside ATOS for the 2017 ADCC camp.
Yeah, I think I stumbled on that. I started up in 2019, so then you dig back into stuff,
Yeah.
That sounds familiar.
I watched that documentary like obsessively for like a year before we went down there. So I knew that was where I was going to end up.
Right. And you were there the whole rest of the up till coming back here.
Yeah, I went in there and never looked back for sure.
Blue through black? You got black there right before you came back here, right?
Yep, yeah, yep.
Tell me about training at ATOS.
It's weird, because I feel like I'm still sort of, processing it, I guess, since it's so new, since I got back, and like, what are the differences? People are always asking, like, what's it like training there? And, it's like training anywhere else. You show up and you have your friends, and, ATOS is sort of, I guess the best way that I can describe it is ATOS is sort of like going to jiu-jitsu college. Like it's a huge academy for one, but you can kind of find any sort of path that you want in there, like, cause there's everybody thinks it's just this room full of world champions, but, which it is 100% all the time, but there's also everybody from, like all belt levels, ages, like backgrounds, like there's a ton of different people. I would say that you are a little bit more responsible for your own training and like structuring your training. You have so many options for classes and everything to work on. Like if you are there and you show up and you are consistent, Galvao notices and he'll pay attention. I do think that he needs to see that you are there and you're consistent before, he only has so much time to spread around, and has to prioritize, some people over others. But if you show up and you're consistent, like he'll help you and like, take care of you and stuff. And same goes with all the other like high level guys there,
Cause what's the membership at ATOS?
Like how many people?
Yeah.
It's like 700 probably.
Sure.
I would say the kids program is huge.
Yeah.
Probably 400 of that is got to be kids. I'm not totally sure what the numbers are. There's 3 mat spaces there. A lot of people don't realize that, but there's like a small mat that's in an entirely different building than the main mat space. The main mat space is probably, I don't know, 4 or 6 of our big mat space here. And then our small mat space is about the size of, or I guess call it the medium mat space is like the size of the mat here.
Right. A big enough place, physically big enough in terms of population that you could kind of get lost and go unnoticed and just be an NPC type of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
To your point about like you kind of have to step up, take responsibility, and be an active player in what you're about to learn a little bit more.
Yeah, and kind of guide your own training. And there's definitely like there was a stretch of like a couple of years where I didn't go to any night classes because I was always like bartending or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I went back and I was on the mat and I was like, I know like 2 people here. It's like I know Andy Murasaki and like Galvao, and I have no idea who the rest of these people are.
I've been a member here 4 years. Who are you people?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like processing like what it's like there and what the differences are. I'm still kind of figuring it out, I guess. You know, like it's almost kind of like I kind of forgot that. Andre Galvao is like a famous jiu-jitsu guy, and he's just like this,
which is good.
Yeah,
we're just guys at the gym.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
yeah. It's just like I call him Professor. You know what I mean? And like, So,
how fast did you progress through the ranks? You a gangster on the mats? I mean, we've rolled or whatever, but I mean, you a 6-7 days a week kind of guy and banging up through the ranks fast.
I've been like, like 5 or 6 days a week, pretty much all of jiu-jitsu. I think the most I was inconsistent for like a good while at white belt. Like I'd be in here like 6 days a week for a month and then be off for like 2 weeks or something.
Kind of common actually. Like we get on a tear and then things happen and life comes up.
Yeah. But then since then I've pretty much been 6 days a week. I mean, I would say I'm pretty average at jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? I just train a lot.
Sure.
There's so much stuff that I have no clue about, or like, like I don't play any spider guard. I don't play any of the lasso guards. Like there's a ton of stuff that I just like don't either have interest in. Like, I mean, I guess when I really think about it, I know stuff about all of that. You know what I mean?
Right. You could give me the 1, 2, 3, 4. This is how you set it up.
If I had to.
For sure.
Yeah. But yeah, and I haven't competed as much as like I would have liked to, especially that. Like I don't really have or I try not to have regrets in life, but like I would have liked to have competed more while I was at ATOS, just because it is such a competition gym. But jiu-jitsu is an expensive hobby, and I can never afford it. You know what I mean? Like living in San Diego and trying to compete all the time is tough.
And I'm gonna pause this 1 second.
I forgot what I was talking about.
Not competing more at ATOS.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're asking if I was a gangster on the mats, which I would say no. Yeah, I almost got put out by a white belt a couple of weeks ago.
Good, good. I want gangster white belts.
I was happy for Chuck.
Yeah, I mean, you think it's the culture of competition there though that like makes you look back and go, I should have jumped in, or do you think that's really what, as you look back on it, that's what you wish you would have done? You know what I mean? Like there's the peer pressure, this is what's happening here, I should have jumped in, or like, man, I wish I would have done it regardless.
So, I think I wish I would have done it. And, because the thing is like, I think the people that are really successful at competition are the people that can like walk into that tournament and be like, I did 100% everything that I needed to do to prepare for this. Mm-hmm. Like I did 100% my best to prepare. Mm-hmm. And like, if you're training at ATOS, like you can say that without a doubt in your mind.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
You didn't have a choice.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, that you did, I mean, obviously like you're responsible for your diet and, choices like that and like sleep and stuff. But like, it's a lot easier to say I did my absolute best that I could for this if you're there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hence the legacy, the reputation, the record.
Yeah. And it's like that room has an energy that is super contagious. It's like a really positive environment. It's hard not to like try and like do well, like when you're around people that are, it really, I mean, everyone should go check that place out. I would recommend staying for like a week so you can really feel what it's like. But yeah, I mean, like, it's it's a different room, you know, like it's just like a really, really positive, good place, you know?
Yeah. What brought you back here?
I mean, you know, I'm from here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my mom's getting older, you know what I mean? I've been gone for almost 10 years.
You're kind of a nomad. You're like a van life guy and all this stuff.
Yeah,
so.
I've always moved around a lot. It was like that when I was a kid too.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like baked into me.
Right.
And after 2 years of living in the ATOS parking lot in my van, I was like ready for a little bit more stability. And
Sure.
you know, I'd gone out there, you know, like, you know, I knew I wanted to get a black belt from Galvao.
Mm-hmm.
I accomplished that goal.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of ready to come home and be closer to my family and all my friends and stuff. And then when I was here visiting in November, and I found out that the M Theory GM position opened, and it was just kind of one of those things, you know, like where I just like saw that door, and it was like a way for me to make money doing jiu-jitsu, you know what I mean? And just like being around jiu-jitsu and also be able to come home. And so I just took the opportunity, you know.
Eases it too. Like, oh, I've got a job.
Yeah,
it makes the decision easier.
Yeah, I got a job, and you know, and like I never went to college or anything. You know, like the best way for me to make money is to bartend, and like I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I like going to bed at like 10 o'clock now.
Yeah, that's another young man's game, dude.
Yeah. It's either or you be a lifer. You know, and I definitely don't want to be a lifer doing that. And
does lifer in that industry translate to alcoholic? Or like addict,
by and large.
I mean, it's too bad.
I mean, you know, like
key bumps in the bathroom kind of thing to get through the night, or is that a
you know, I don't know if it always has to be that extreme, but like, you know, you're definitely I mean, honestly, to be a good bartender, like you have to consume a little bit of alcohol every day. You know what I mean? Like you need to know how things taste. You need to taste cocktails that you make. Yeah. You taste a cocktail that you make 200 times in a night, like, you know, you're gonna feel it. You know what I mean? And you can't be spitting that out like in front of a customer while you're in a well. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I mean, it's definitely not necessarily a healthy lifestyle. I've known a few people that have done it long term and managed to like stay pretty healthy.
That's good.
But I think it's pretty rare. I definitely, you know, like in my past, like have had substance abuse issues, you know, and I always loved booze, you know what I mean? So for me, it's definitely not the best thing.
Right.
And I don't know, I love jiu-jitsu, you know, like I love M Theory, you know, like I always considered this home. Like I got a ton of respect for Ishmael, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, so I was like super excited to come back here and be able to do this and just like hang out at this academy all day.
Yeah, man.
It's awesome.
Yeah, hanging out at a gym, much more fun, big picture, much healthier, big picture than hanging out at a bar.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's a damn good time at the bars, but.
And I also, it's been kind of my plan to hopefully eventually have an academy of my own. And so this is such a great way to like get to know the business side of it and be here like pretty much all day, every day, and decide if that's the life I want to live. Yeah. You know what I mean? Right. Without having too much like stake in it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Totally.
Like I'm not going to lose my life savings or something if I, you know, so.
Yeah. Or open up a shop and realize 6 months in, this sucks. I don't want to be here sweeping these mats again, you know, or whatever. Like it's your thing or it's not, right?
Yeah. So yeah, it was just a great opportunity all around, you know.
When you landed here, is that your first time teaching again since Blue Belt, or had you dabbled with instruction?
No, I've been teaching kind of off and on since then. Yeah. I haven't had any like consistent classes. I was never teaching at ATOS. You know what I mean? Obviously, like, but I have a friend, Migs, really hilarious. I wish you could get this guy on the podcast, dude. He's the funniest guy.
I got mics. Let's do it.
Well, he's in San Diego.
I got internet. Let's do it.
He's this hilarious Filipino guy, and he's always been like a big supporter of mine. Like I met him right away when I moved to ATOS. He's also a Galvao black belt, and he opened his own place. And when I got my brown belt, he had me teaching Tuesday class for a while, and then like filling in a little bit here and there.
But just like practicing jiu-jitsu a little bit here and there, of coaching it, of teaching anything, results in a huge expansion of your ability to teach it, your understanding of the topic, probably your ability to do the thing. Like every time I teach a class or even offer a little tip to somebody, it's always like it prompts questions I didn't have before I started explaining it and stuff like that, and you can just run with it.
I think that's a huge part of teaching is other people's questions. When people ask you questions, and it's like anything else in life, everything is better when you can see somebody else's viewpoint.
Yeah.
And people ask questions, and it's just like, you realize it's the same thing, but it's a different thing at the same time, kind of, I guess.
Yeah, totally. You and I can do the same 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. It works for me and not for you.
Yeah. Why?
Yeah. That's the mystery of it all. That's the challenge of it.
Now I'm trying to, like I was saying, I don't really think about my jiu-jitsu that much. I'm starting to try to think about it. And like, one way that I think about it is asking myself why. Like, why do I do this? Why does this work so well for me? Or why does this not work well for me? And like, asking why is something that, that's like been my whole life pretty much. Is like, I was like one of those kids that's just like, why?
Good.
That's how I end up in like the punk rock world, because I was constantly asking why.
Turns contrarian.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But yeah.
I dig it. Do you think you're trying to be more conscious, but you say you're kind of the artistic brain, and you kind of just let the flow state happen, so to speak, or turn the brain off and let the body do it? You think you're working against yourself, or do you think that's beneficial for your own jiu-jitsu?
I'm a very much like, what do you call it? Like, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily like a left brain or a right brain person, but I have, it's almost like I got two conflicting people inside me all the time.
I bet, yeah.
And so like either
two
way,
wolves inside you. No,
yeah. One of them's super fat. And one of them's starving to death.
One's a chihuahua. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't necessarily think it's working against me. I think that it's like working well with kind of where I'm at now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
This is the next step.
And and that's the thing. Like, you get a black belt, and it's such a cliche. Like, I know nothing. Like, I'm starting the game over. But man, I really realized, like, the reason why you know nothing is because you know so much about jiu-jitsu. You like know the things that you don't know.
Oh yeah.
And it's kind of like, like, I think everybody experiences it a little bit. I'm like, man, do I even deserve this? Luckily, not to sound like too much of a douche, but like,
let's go.
Every time I have had that feeling, I'm like, I got this thing from Andre Galvao. Like,
yeah, bro.
I'm not questioning his judgment.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah,
so
trust your seniors in some regard to see what you can't see. Much like, now I know so much, I know what I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, they know more, and they're seeing things you're not seeing. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. I dig it.
Yeah.
I think the gradient moves so far up and so far down that it's not possible to do this sport without some underlying imposter syndrome thoughts, regardless of your belt and size and whatever. Like,
yeah, totally.
I was this morning giving up, like, essentially letting a newer guy pass my guard, but as a guy with a wrestling background, and his pinning power was brutal, and I'm working different escapes and trying to roll out and trying to time things better. And this cat, a fresh blue belt who wrestled 15, 20 years ago, kind of owned me the whole time. And I know I'm better at jiu-jitsu than him, and I was putting constraints on it and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it's just a reminder of, like, you still don't know, though. You never know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, wrestling, that's still grappling, and that's a lot of experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you just called it grappling as a whole and gave it the same belt system as jiu-jitsu, that guy would probably be
purplish.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, but
certainly on his feet.
And the other thing that I try to remind myself of is, like, I would be bored if I thought that I knew everything. You know what I mean? Like, one thing that I like about jiu-jitsu is that it's this sort of endless puzzle that's always changing. It's like a puzzle that is almost changing the rules on you all the time.
Yeah.
When you figure out the puzzle one way and then you get somebody else and then, it's a different puzzle.
Yeah.
And, I think a lot of people in jiu-jitsu wouldn't stay in jiu-jitsu if it wasn't that dynamic element. You know what I mean? Like it keeps you coming back.
I bet that's a piece of why a lot of people quit at certain, like, can you imagine getting
absolutely.
Can you imagine getting a purple belt or brown belt and having, let's say, just run with it, an overinflated sense of yourself and what you know and how your roles go and all this stuff, and just kind of being like, man, I know a lot of this. I'm good at this. You'd immediately start like not showing up. You know what I mean? Like, that would kill my motivation in some regard. Like the puzzle's done. It's not. You're delusional.
There's actually, I won't name his name, but there was a guy that used to train here, and he's good. And he got his brown belt, and he was like, I know enough. I'm good enough for what I want to be, and he stopped.
I mean, so that's cool. Like, if you're just like, you know what, like, I'm good with this. I'm gonna move on. I'm down with that. But like, the I know enough question is the one that catches me. It's like, I mean, maybe for your preference you do, but like, like enough of the game, because I bet that's not true. This is deep water, brother.
Yeah, I don't think there's. I think if there is anybody that can say that, it's only a few of them. A couple of them. I mean, how can you think it's changing all the time? Right.
Yeah, I heard some lingo from a guy who's opening a gym in town. He'll be coming up on the podcast next few weeks, and he was talking about this position would be great for you, and he kept calling it. I'm gonna have to ask him. He kept giving it a name. I'm like, man, I guess I'm yet another thing I don't know. Am I a purple belt? Right? And then we got on the mat and did it, and I'm like, oh, I'm in this position all the time.
Yeah.
Like I just didn't know it was fucking called. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I mean, I've had that time and time again where you're like, the game is changing by title and system and more abstract approach so much where it's like you're never gonna know it. Yeah. Never. I don't know the basic shit myself, but to be at the point where you're just like, yeah, I got it. I run this mat. I'm gonna head out. That's just insanity.
Well, yeah, and I mean, because it's like you could just wait around a little bit, and then like it's gonna change again, and then you don't know.
Wait for somebody to wrap the lapel the other way, and suddenly it's a whole new guard.
I also think it's weird because even if you do feel like you know everything, if you're doing this for like self-defense, especially, or fitness too, like you kind of have to keep doing it. Yep. You know what I mean? Like you have to keep it sharp. Like I don't think it matters if you're a black belt. If you haven't trained in 10 years and you get in a fight and you need to use jiu-jitsu, like I would rather be sharp. Yeah. Personally. Yep. But
yeah, the difference between what you think your blade is, and it probably is close, but a little bit of dullness.
Yeah, I mean that could
who knows?
That could mean a different outcome.
For sure. Did you ever end up using jiu-jitsu skills, bartending and
I have, and I'll tell you one kind of funny story. The first time I did was at white belt, and I was at a show. I wasn't at work or anything, and it was like an underground like DIY show, and so there's no security, there's no nothing. And there's this super messed up guy, he wasn't a kid for sure, but he was harassing a buddy of mine. He was actually waving a knife around. And I was like somebody's going to have to deal with this, you know what I mean? And I was maybe like a beer or two in, like I was sober, you know what I mean?
What's more dangerous than a white belt with a couple beers in them?
But so I ended up, going up to this guy and trying to talk to him like I would, like if I was at work or something.
De-escalate.
Yeah, and so I talked to him a little bit, but he was like really loose with this grip on this knife, and it was like a non-folding blade knife. It was a pretty big knife. Right. But I knocked it out of his hand. Like I just knocked it out of his hand. I think I did like that motion.
Slap the wrist and.
But I had learned an arm drag. I never knew an arm drag before, and I arm dragged him to his back and I rear naked choked him totally unconscious. And it had rained like a couple hours before, and we were standing in like this big mud puddle, and I just like laid him down in this puddle, and then he woke up, and he was all like disoriented or whatever, and I called him a cab. to the place he
You
was
gotta
staying.
go.
And I shoved him in that cab, and that was that. And it was funny too, because I really wanted to tell Ish the story, but I was like worried about telling him the story that I was like going to get in trouble, like get kicked out of the academy or something.
There's some question marks out there. You never know, but
I didn't do anything wrong,
No.
you know, and like I felt like I didn't do anything wrong, and
I think
you know, and I didn't
handled
hurt
it
the guy.
perfect.
I definitely, you know, I could have kicked him in the head. I
Yeah,
don't know,
bash
but-
you in the face, and I could have stopped it.
Yeah,
But now you got permanent damage. Could have died. I've got a police record now. Like nonsense.
but
It's a great story.
I don't remember what Ish said, but I told him like after class one day, and I was like, I have kind of a funny story for you, and I told it to him. I don't remember what he said, but I don't think he really said anything. He was just kind of like,
Yeah, do that ish thing.
yeah, but yeah, and then a couple times working at bars in San Diego, once in Seattle. It's all been pretty much the same situation. A couple times of just like, it depends on the size, right? Like if they're big, like I'm gonna choke you out right away. You know, I don't care. Like you know, like if I have to put my hands on you, I'm gonna finish it.
Right.
You know,
Be quick.
but-
Get behind them.
yeah,
I'm smaller, so I'm gonna be faster. Get behind
Yeah.
them. Get on the back. Go.
yeah,
That's way cooler than my jiu-jitsu in real life stories. I like fell on some did a break fall on slippery steps one time. Probably did save my ass, you know, but nothing as cool as choking a dude out.
I mean, honestly, like I hope I never have to do that again
100%.
because fighting sucks.
Yeah, and I mean it's wild. Think of the liability. You know,
Oh, yeah.
things just go slightly off, and like those stupid stories you hear about, you know, people beefing with each other outside a bar, and some guy gets
One punch
shoved,
death.
whacks
Yeah.
his head on the curb, and that's the end. Now you're in prison. Like, nah,
Yeah.
forget it. I'm going home. So that's the best thing about jiu-jitsu. You spend all your fucking free time here. You're not out getting in trouble.
Yeah. I mean, for me, that, you know, like early on, that was like a big thing, you know, like I got in a lot of trouble when I was a kid, you know, and was, you know, like it had been kind of transitioning out of that life a little bit. But then, you know, jiu-jitsu is really where I can, you know, looking back, I can see like, okay, like this really took me on a way more positive direction, you know, like,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Which is the real deal, the real benefit of it and things like it.
yeah.
You join
Yeah,
the CrossFit
totally.
cult, it just gets you somewhere other than causing trouble. Dig it.
I generally like I feel bad for people that, you know, don't find something as positive as jiu-jitsu in their
Yeah.
life, you know, that has like real like material, like real effects, you know, like
Tangible.
tangible, yeah, you know.
Yeah. Dig it. Last thing I throw at people on here is, since you are an expert in jiu-jitsu, you're a black belt, give advice to people in jiu-jitsu. A lot of times we frame it per belt rank. So if I'm just starting and I'm on a white belt, what kind of advice would you give? Blue, purple, or frame it however you want. No big deal.
You know, I don't think I've ever really thought about it as belt rank. You know, I honestly always give people, I'm going to attempt it. So
Yeah.
the first thing, like at white belt, I always tell people like your body is learning to move in ways that you probably have never done before. And like, you know, I tell people the cliche, like just show up and have fun. Like a good academy will do the work for you. You know what I mean? And your body, like you need to like trust your like subconscious learning systems or whatever to be able to get you kind of to the next level. You know, I would probably say some version of that to everybody. Like,
Sure.
if you can't just show up and like, if it's a struggle for you to show up and you're not having fun, like that's a problem, and you need to figure out like why it is. You know what I mean? And fix it. But beyond that, you know, like advice that I would give blue belts. I mean,
Go to Seattle, teach some classes.
yeah, go to Seattle, teach some classes. You know, I don't know. I would say probably something similar. You know, I think it's just like easy to be a black belt and say like show up and have fun. You know, like they're like, you know, gonna look at you and be like, of course,
Sure.
that's what you're gonna say.
Because we show up and you have fun.
Yeah,
Kicking my ass,
well,
damn
yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly. But like, you know, like I think that blue belts should not get too lost in like learning from YouTube and you know, make sure that they're still like sharpening basics. I would say some version of the same thing to purple belts. You know, I have no idea what advice I don't feel like I have any advice, business giving advice to brown belts either. Like, my advice to brown belts is like, you're clearly doing a good job. Keep doing, keep doing what you're doing.
Look how far you've come, buddy. I mean? Yeah, I dig it.
I mean, honestly, that's the advice I'd give to everybody. Like, you know, like eat right, sleep right, drink water, show up, have fun. You know, don't be a dick.
Yeah. You just dismantled the whole fitness industry. Every sport, every gym. If people absorbed that, we wouldn't need any of that. They would just be living their dream.
Yeah.
What was your favorite phase of your training? Let me toss this in there too.
Man, my favorite phase of my training was definitely through my brown belt. Because I did like a lot of fun stuff. Like I went and trained in Brazil for 4 months. Mm-hmm. I went to Mexico and trained for a little while. You know, like it was the first time I guess I felt like pretty confident, you know, like pretty confident, like in my own abilities. Yeah. Like, I was super, super consistent and like super focused through brown belt. Yeah.
Something tells me your answer is, well, my favorite phase of my life thus far is this like 4 or 5 years. Yeah. Going to Brazil, living in California. Yeah. Just so happens it's centered around jiu-jitsu, but it happened to be a good time overall.
Yeah, it was amazing. You know, like that's, you know, every time I try to think about that, like that period in my life, like, you know, like I said, it's like kind of hard to process because it's like so recent. Man, I'm just like filled with so much gratitude, which is also I'm full of cheesy jiu-jitsu cliches.
Love it, man.
But they're like true, you know, like I just feel so much gratitude to jiu-jitsu that it's like in my life that I'm like alive and not in prison. You know, like I really feel like jiu-jitsu helped me with that one. And I've got to do a lot of really, really cool stuff. You know, and yeah, I mean, it's awesome. You know, like I think I'm lucky I'm going to be able to be on my deathbed and look back in my life and be like, oh, that was sick, you know?
I lived in a van, baby.
Yeah, in a van in the ATOS parking lot at 40 years old, you know what I mean?
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, bro. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
Dig it.